Can we really blame all of society's ills on the humble Twinkie? Maybe. And we're going to find out how this week on Seemingly Unrelated.
Oh, yeah.
I hate it. Welcome back to Seemingly Unrelated, the podcast where we connect the seemingly mundane elements of everyday life to the most unbelievable but true stories and events across history, society, culture, you name it, we'll talk about it. I am your host, Dr. Andrew Johnstone, lecturer, culture, media, and society at the University of Glasgow, and I'm joined as always by the producer of this show, Naomi. Hello, Naomi.
Hello.
And this episode, we've got a special guest. A guest that's really special to my heart. He is the founder of Walkie Talky Brewing in Leith, Scotland. It is Michael Johnstone. Guess whether or not he's related to one of us. Michael, how are you doing today?
Hello, Andrew. Hello, Naomi. Thank you for having me. The only joke that I thought of for this entire evening was this, that as opposed to this podcast, Andrew, you and I are actually related.
That's true. There's nothing seeming about this relationship.
No, it is truly related. By birth, almost.
I'm hoping we get some sibling rivalry in this, this chat. I want to hear some bickering. I want old wounds to be opened.
You know, there may be a disagreement, actually, right here at the start, because getting started with it, Michael, I want to know.
Okay,
where
I'm listening.
do you rank the Twinkie in the sort of Hostess, Little Debbie's pantheon of snack cakes? We're talking about Twinkies today.
Okay, Twinkies, lovely. And it is Pride Month, so that makes sense. I would say Twinkies are kind of low in the whole Hostess. If I'm being completely honest, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I distinctly remember Twinkies tasting one particular way when I and you were children, and that at some point in time, I believe they no longer existed, and they came back and they tasted completely different, and I don't mess with them anymore.
Yeah, you are not wrong, because actually Hostess stopped making Twinkies around 2011. And for a whole year, they didn't make them. And then a Canadian company bought the rights to Twinkies. So one imagines that some amount of change was made to the Twinkies formula.
So what you're saying is that my palate still remains superior, that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When it comes to foodstuffs, I'm still on point a little bit. Yeah. Okay, good.
This is not one of those things where it's just, as a child, you remember things differently. And they're like, no, the Twinkie has legitimately changed and it's gotten just ever so slightly smaller.
I stand by my answer. It's low on the totem pole for me.
Low on the totem pole. It is indeed. You are right to point out, Michael, speaking of seemingly unrelated, the origin of the term twink, which refers to a skinny, typically blonde, young gay man, descends from the word Twinkie. Because,
I didn't actually know that. I didn't know they were connected.
Blonde on top and full of white cream, Naomi. I'm very sorry. I'm so sorry to say it out loud, but that is the reasoning behind calling them twinks.
No.
I know, it's awful.
That's actually terrible.
It's terrible, but that is the alleged. It's the alleged connection, and at some point in time, it's probably true. No, but
I didn't realize it was going to get so R-rated so quickly.
It got blue fast.
Real quick. I hope you're not losing any sponsors over this,
Oh, boy. So the Twinkie, despite its close associations with apparently things that are uncomfortable and the, quote, junk food jungle of the United States, it was actually invented by a Canadian. So moving over to a Canadian company is the Twinkie coming home. Jimmy Alexander Dewar, nothing to do with Dewar's the whiskey. He invented the Twinkie in 1930 when he was working for the Chicago-based Continental Baking Company. Also famous for making Wonder Bread. So they really...
Jesus. Yeah, they've just co-opted. Yeah, I got it. Okay. It's if you're next you're going to tell me that Honkies R Us was associated with this company as well, we're just going to go all the way down the white slurs.
Yeah, the Continental Baking Company really is just like the sort of ground zero for the decline of the health of the United States.
Lovely.
So yes, Jimmy was working on a machine that was used to add cream to the strawberry shortcakes. But being as it was 1930, they only made strawberry shortcakes when strawberries were in season, because we hadn't quite destroyed the way that food works yet. So he thought, hey, I got an idea. What if I make a sponge cake that doesn't use strawberries, but can use this machine? So that the machine, which we imagine cost a lot of money to purchase, can run 365, right? Every day of the year. And so he invents the Twinkie. Now, what was you say the flavor changed from your childhood, Michael, but what was the original flavor of the Twinkie?
If I had to guess, I would say vanilla, but I feel like that's too obvious and you're going to come with something else.
Yeah, no. The original flavor of the Twinkie was banana cream.
Oh.
No, the vanilla, which became the more popular choice, was actually the result of banana rationing during World War II, which is insane. The banana rationing. We always hear about tin metal and nylon, but never the banana rationing.
Where was the banana? Was it just the logistics of like trying to get it from South America? Or was it like we're sending a banana with every soldier to the Western Front?
Little column A, little column B. Like the price of things goes up because, of course, the banana republics are all in the Caribbean and South America. So quite a lot of the shipping would have happened in the Atlantic. And the Atlantic Ocean was heavily patrolled by U-boats under the Nazis. So anything that had to ship through the Atlantic just increased in price as a result. And then, yeah, we did. We shipped a ton of bananas. And the name Twinkie comes from the name of a shoe shop around the corner called Twinkle Toes Shoes.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. He just liked the name Twinkle Toes Shoes. So he's like, I'm going to call it the Twinkie.
And it's changed pride for years after. Yeah.
So the Twinkie, everyone likes the Twinkie when they taste it, but the moment the Twinkie hits, the moment it becomes a American sensation, is when it becomes the principal sponsor of Howdy Doody. Howdy Doody was sponsored by Twinkies. Now, Naomi.
Yeah, I was about to say, this is, I mean, even for us, Andrew, why would we know who Howdy Doody is?
Should I leave? I can go.
Have you've ever heard of Howdy Doody?
No.
It's in Back to the Future, right?
It is in Back to the Future.
Have you seen Back to the Future?
I think once. Okay, I don't know.
That's the only cultural touchstone I could think might intertwine with Howdy Doody.
It's obviously not stuck in my head enough.
No. Howdy Doody was a morning kids television program in the United States starring a ventriloquist dummy named Howdy Doody, who was sort of dressed up as like a cowboy, vaguely, and his puppeteer. And they would do, there'd be sketches, and he'd talk to the kids, and it was reading time, and there was a cast of characters, but it's more, I think, known for its theme song, which is as simple as, it's Howdy Doody time, it's Howdy Doody time, Howdy Doody, Howdy Doody, Howdy Doody time. That's it.
Very creative.
Yeah, listen, they had a lot less time to do stuff in the 50s,
So that's when it becomes an American sensation. And then, Michael, you'll love this. It gains international fame. And this is not a joke. Because of the scene in Ghostbusters of 1984, where Egon explains the psychokinetic energy of the New York City area being a Twinkie the size of whatever building.
That's wild.
Literally, Britain had not heard of the Twinkie. France had not heard of the Twinkie. Japan was not familiar with the Twinkie. Then Ghostbusters comes out. Everyone's like, what the hell is a Twinkie? And then the Twinkie gets attached to...
That's the tipping point, yeah.
Well, that's when it gets introduced, and then it hits full throttle in Die Hard. because Officer
right.
Powell gets himself.
He's getting Twinkies.
It's so weird. So like the strength of the Twinkie not carried by its deliciosity, but rather its pop culture affiliations.
And small side note, the reason I know of Twinkies is Zombieland.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's
absolutely.
right.
Because he's
Harrelson,
trying to
yeah.
find the last Twinkie on Earth. And so it must be this weird marketing thing they're doing in all the films.
It didn't work, though, because Hostess went bankrupt like 3 years after Zombieland came out.
Bad marketing
Shows you
strategy.
the cultural impact of Zombieland. Yeah.
The Twinkies' rise to popularity, having been invented in 1930, by 1990 is a global phenomenon, right?
Okay.
And when you become huge, right? When you live fast, die young, right? When you become a huge success like that, you also become a target. So from the earliest days, we're talking even in the 1930s, one of them, we could see the elements of one of the most prolific rumors of the Twinkie. What do people say about the Twinkie? What's the sort of...
Oh yeah, it'll last forever. Like it's got so many preservatives. It'll like go through the nuclear holocaust or whatever.
Right.
Whatever. That like Twinkies and cockroaches are the last thing to survive or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. What lives longer, Twinkies or cockroaches?
That's got to be the Zombieland joke, right?
And that is the Zombieland joke. Yep.
Yeah.
People were saying from the very beginning that Twinkies are so artificial. There's so many ingredients in them that I can't pronounce, that surely they must have an unlimited shelf life.
Surely.
Now, how long does a Twinkie actually last on the shelf? In its packaging. Take a guess. Wild guess.
I don't know. I mean, I would gather to say, but you're right. It's full of so many. I'm going to give 12 months is all they give.
12 months. 25 days.
Whoa.
25 days. The Twinkie, from the minute it hits the shelf, a 25-day clock starts. And after 25 days, mold growth will start to appear inside of the Twinkie. Now, that is still shockingly long for one of these snack cakes. And it mostly comes down to there's no dairy in a Twinkie.
Right.
No milk.
That was my reasoning for the 12 months is that there's not really any real milk in it.
But it has egg in it. Egg or egg white, depending on when we're talking about, is the thing. That's the thing that goes wrong. That and flour. But so there was this, like so many rumors, right? There was this kernel of truth, which is that they do last quite a long time on the shelf. But 25 days is hardly surviving a nuclear apocalypse or a zombie apocalypse. So, firstly, what sort of enhances this rumor about the Twinkie is our old friend Naomi, cue the bingo card sound, World War II.
Never heard of it. What happened? What happened there?
So during the Second World War, it became necessary to produce large quantities of calorie-dense foodstuffs that were also shelf-stable, both in a cold and relatively wet climate like Belgium, but also in a hot environment like Indonesia. And there's a lot that's been written about this. I'll put some links in the show notes to a few articles, but the amount of food science development that happened in the Second World War, there's legit a pre and post food with World War II. Like there was food before World War II, and that food is not the same as food after World War II. Like a hamburger is a different entity. The cow was probably a different entity. Like it's a whole shift, right? And it became about, those three elements for the soldier were 1, calorie dense, 2, shelf stable in extreme conditions, and 3, comfort. So Hostess started experimenting with ingredients to ensure that Twinkies, which we did send as a part of rations to soldiers in World War II, make sure the Twinkies could get to them and that they would be consistent and pleasant, right? A nice, sweet treat.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the war, why not keep doing that, right? Like, why would you go back to an older recipe?
Yeah, well, you've crossed the Rubicon. Like, we know we've already switched everything over during the war effort to make sure that this product works this way. It actually costs us more on our bottom line to try to go back to the old recipe. So let's just keep making it the way it is. That's, to me, that makes sense on why they would continue doing that. Also, at the same time, if no one noticed and no one complained, or not enough people noticed or complained, why would you change that? And you've got all these guys that are coming back from war that probably looked at that at some sort of small comfort, in their rations. And that's probably going to unlock a little bit of memory there as well. So just keep doing what you're doing. It's hard to write the Titanic,
Michael, someone was pushing back, though.
Oh, no.
A man named N. Philip Norman. It's a nutritionist who in 1947 writes this really aggressive book about how the quote, fusion of commerce and calories, end quote, was a potential danger on the same scale as the smoking of cigarettes.
God, we had all the answers back then and just no one listened.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a point, right? Like this idea that like if Hostess is allowed to, say, run unfettered with its whatever experimentation with different chemicals, despite their deliciosity, it doesn't always work out for folks in the long run.
No, I don't know. It's just sad that, like, again, we've been knowing that this is a bad thing, but we just can't stop. It's almost as if during the war effort, we had to change plans, and we've got this machination behind us, and we don't want to change routes. Again, like the Titanic trying to avoid. So we're just going to keep going on. Even though we know this is bad, let's just keep going on and continue to make really awful chemically food. And it's not going to be good for anybody, but screw it. We're here anyway. Let's keep going.
We're the DuPont Corporation. Whack some Teflon in there. It's good for you.
Right, exactly. We're the military-industrial complex. Let's just keep on making some bombs. Let's go.
And all that military-industrial complex, of course, comes with suburbs, supermarkets, and the school lunchbox featuring cartoon characters. Twinkies legit made sure that a Twinkie would fit length, like if you shoved it into the corner of a plastic or metal at that time school lunchbox, the Twinkie would fit right in there, just so that moms, air quotes moms, the poor indentured servants of the 1950s in the United States would think, oh, sandwich, apple, Twinkie, boom, 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 and like we're not gonna pay for school lunch. Yikes. Have you seen what the school lunch line looks? The poor's get the school lunch. I'm going to pack my child a howdy doody lunchbox, and I'm going to whack that Twinkie right into the corner. So the Twinkies just had a long, like, it's always been vilified, right? Even it's been beloved by children and those who are children at heart, and despised by people who are obsessed with the ill health of the United States.
And now for something completely unrelated. I feel like the English version of this is the turkey Twizzler.
Yes. Michael, do you know what a turkey Twizzler is?
No.
I remember once I ate a turkey Twizzler in school. It's the only time I've had one. I burped 5 hours later and could taste it clearly like I was eating it. And like that for life, I was like, fucking hell, that was terrible. And then, do you know Jamie Oliver as well?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he had a vendetta against turkey Twizzlers and like fun lunch food, and all English people hate him for it because he got rid of all of the fun turkey Twizzlers.
Is it like a chicken nugget? Like what are we doing here with the turkey Twizzler? It's
reconstituted turkey in the shape of a spiral. So it looks like a pig's tail, and it's quite dark brown, isn't it? It doesn't look anything like turkey, and it tastes like burp.
That sounds like doo doo to me. I think you ate some doo doo.
As I say, I was pretty against the turkey Twizzlers.
Well, it damaged you clearly. It
did
some serious.
I'll remember that burp the rest of my life.
Yeah, this is a core memory of a burp right here that you got just implanted.
I was going to say, have you seen when he tried to do that same shit in West Virginia?
That's what I was about to pull up.
Oh, yeah. And then all the American
pink
kids, he did the thing where he like cut up all of like the chickeny bits and put them in a blender. And he was like, would you still eat this? And all of the American kids were like, yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, we will.
Hell
That
yeah,
shit
we
looks
will.
good. Yeah, let's go.
I was like, why are you making this so appetizing? Before it looked like a bird, and
I
now
love
it looks
crunched up
like...
bones.
Let's go.
I forgot about that. That was funny.
Yeah, that
And
was
yet
great.
You still can't get haggis in the States. I don't understand. I don't get it.
Doesn't make sense. But the Twinkie's not alone, right? Like, the ding dong, the oatmeal cream pie,
The
they're
ho-ho.
all- the ho-ho. Don't forget the ho-ho. Can we think of any more?
Zebra cake? Is that a
zingers, zebra
zingers?
cakes,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. They're all the same garbage, right? So when does the Twinkie go from thing that people don't like because they're worried about chemical illness to what I would argue is like the epitome, the symbol of America's gluttony and the fake food phenomenon?
I mean, some sort, is it just like, jazzercise, like all like the aerobics of like the early 80s? I don't know. I have no idea. What's the...
Well, let me see if I can get an answer for you by asking a very simple question, Michael.
Mhm.
What do you know about Harvey Milk?
He was an American politician. He was a council member in San Francisco in the late 70s. He was an early advocate for gay equality. He was an out gay man. Obviously, San Francisco is a little more progressive, even to this day. And he was killed by one of his coworkers because guns in America. Woo!
Correct. So far, so good. Yes, on November 8th, 1977, Harvey Milk became the Board of Supervisors representative in the city of San Francisco from the 5th District, which was the Castro and basically nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
The 5th District today is not the same thing. The 5th District today includes, it's like the Castro, Haight-Ashbury, and a little bit of the Mission, I want to say.
Yeah.
But he was indeed the first openly gay man ever elected to office in the United States. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. What do we mean? You got any experience, Michael, with San Francisco's 5th District? You spent any time around the Castro, perhaps, in your life?
When I briefly lived in San Francisco, it was over Halloween, and me and my buddy Ryan, who I was staying with at the time, we decided to go see the famous Halloween parade down in the Castro.
Yeah, of course.
And I was just wearing like a button-down shirt. I didn't look too different than I do now. I probably had actual hair back then. And some guy just points at me. He's like, "You're going as Jack Black." And I was just like, I got no defense on that one. I just laughed. I was like, yeah, I guess I am. That's my Halloween costume, Jack Black.
Also elected that same day for the first time ever was Dan White. Dan White was a former police officer and firefighter who was a reasonably conservative-leaning gentleman, although his opinion when he was first elected was sort of I don't really care what the gays do as long as they don't do it in my backyard kind of a vibe. Just, you guys stay in the Castro and it's fine. They actually both, Milk and White, started off as in cooperation with one another. They were both opposed to the construction of a mental health treatment facility that would be put in White's district, which Milk thought initially was it wasn't well planned. There was no good sort of system for bringing people in and seeing them discharged. It seemed more to him like a prison than a hospital. And White didn't want it because he didn't want crazy people in his backyard, was his thinking. But eventually some changes were made and Milk stopped supporting that construction. And from that day forward, Dan White did everything in his power to just fuck with Harvey Milk. Harvey Milk could have come in there and proposed Dan White Day, where we all pretend to be firefighters, which sounds fun, and celebrate the life and career of Dan White, and Dan White would have voted against it. And then Later, after several months working together, Dan resigned from his position in the Board of Supervisors, citing his salary, which is like $9,500, as being too low, which was correct. That is too low. But also, I don't know if Board of Supervisors is meant to be like a full, like your only thing you do. So, after about 3 days, Dan regrets his decision, goes to the mayor, and asks to have his resignation reversed. But the mayor, he sort of goes, maybe, but then he decides he wanted to slot in someone else who would support the mayor's agenda because Dan was sort of mixed on that. And so on November 27th, 1978, Dan White climbed into the basement of City Hall armed with his police service pistol using a window that was unlocked, which meant he didn't have to go through the metal detectors. He walked into the mayor's office, fired an entire clip, and killing the mayor, George Moscone, and then he started walking out of the mayor's office, reloading his gun, encountered Harvey Milk in the hallway, asked him to step into an office, and then he emptied his barrel again, in both cases, ensuring the final bullet went through the back of the skull, or as you would call it, execution style.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
That evening, a 40,000-person candlelight vigil was held throughout the Castro in memory of both Harvey and Mayor Moscone. What do you think happened to Dan White in the wake of this incident, Michael?
In a just world, the man was put on trial and rightfully convicted for executing two of his colleagues in cold blood inside of a municipal building that is technically owned by the people.
Surely
Right?
that can be the only result. Like, if anything else, if that's not what happened, that's mental. Like, that's actually
A jury of his peers
insane.
put him under the jail.
So he turned himself into authorities a few days later. He was charged with 2 counts of murder in the first degree of a public official. So you're right? This is cold-blooded murder in the first, premeditated, and these are public officials in a public space, which in California, the year before, a new law was passed, which actually elevated the crime of shooting public officials and killing them, assassination, let's call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They elevated that to being punishable by death. So Dan White's facing the death penalty. For sure. And he's, signed a statement to the police. He's got multiple witnesses, right? The head of the Board of Supervisors, right? President of the Board of Supervisors saw him in the hallway after Harvey's murder and was like, "Hey, Dan," and he walked away, and then she looked down and there was Harvey, and she's like, "Oh shit," and then had to go on and announce it. Do you know who that person was?
If I remember correctly, of my brief time spent in San Francisco, there was a lot of hatred towards this particular person, mostly when they became the mayor after this incident, which I believe was former U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So Dianne Feinstein had run against Moscone in 1975 and lost.
Mm-hmm.
Then became the Board of Supervisors president, which is essentially like vice mayor. Right. Fine. Live to fight another day. And then Moscone and White, or Milk, are murdered by White. And she becomes mayor and then gets reelected as mayor and then becomes a House rep and then becomes a senator representing California in the Senate, which she would do to her dying day 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the big knock against Feinstein, I remember back then, was, when I was there in the early 2000s, just rent had gone absolutely insane. And then any old school head like San Franciscan guys that have, people that have been there forever, they're like, it's all because of Feinstein, because she didn't allow rent control. That was like one of the big things in the 80s, was trying to keep rent control going. And she was obviously, a lobbying firm against rent. The landlords basically said, don't allow this to happen. So that's why San Francisco to this day is still absolutely so insane to try to rent or buy or have any sort of livable, like, kind of circumstances on the peninsula.
Yeah, you can't wind the clock back on that because the loss in terms of value would be so devastating. Oh, good
It's
work,
almost like
Diane.
it's almost like a Twinkie, like you can't turn that thing around, man.
Can't turn that thing around.
Keep going, just keep making the Twinkie the way it's made. Yeah.
So we got 2 counts of murder in the first, facing the death penalty. We have the mayor elect or whatever, the interim mayor, basically eyewitness to this crime. There's no way he's going to get out of this one. So Dan White's lawyers didn't even attempt to plead not guilty. There was no submission of a not guilty plea. They pled guilty, but diminished capacity. Now, for those people who aren't familiar with diminished capacity, basically arguing that, yes, this person committed this crime, but at the time that they committed the crime, their ability to make rational decisions was disrupted. It was diminished in some way for reasons. Now, there are many legitimate applications of diminished capacity. For example, people suffering from very, very serious mental health illnesses that result in hallucinations, for example, may indeed be experiencing a hallucination during which time they commit unknowingly a crime. Yes, they have committed that crime. They are in fact guilty, but they were hallucinating. Like, that's not like what they didn't know what they were doing at that time. So it is reasonable to then apply some sort of reduced sentence. Mm-hmm. What, though, was Dan White's diminished capacity? He was depressed. He was depressed because he had money troubles. Now, I'm making fun of the word depressed because the man did not have a depression diagnosis. This is not depressed in terms of like the actual illness. This is a colloquial use of depression in that he had the bums. He had the sadnies. So spurred on by money troubles, he had a depression because, of course, remember he quit his job because it wasn't paying enough and he was going to go do something else. And exacerbated by a switch in behavior because of his depression, he had not engaged in his usual, quote, exercise routine and diet. In fact, he'd been consuming, quote, an excess amount of junk food. Basically saying this dude was sad and he was chugging Coca-Colas and smashing junk food in his face all day for 3 days in a row. And he just went off on one and killed 2 people that he also knew previously. The jury, which was over 50% affluent white women, not a single openly gay person, nor any black people on that jury, by the way, agreed with the argument and reduced the charge to voluntary manslaughter, which meant that instead of the death penalty, Dan White was sentenced to 7 2/3 years of jail, of which he served 5, owing to his good behavior. Now, we on this podcast have been pretty open in saying we don't really like prison. No. There are many instances in which perhaps other interventions that are more restorative in their nature are more helpful. But I don't know, man. Dan White needed to go away for a little while. That's pretty intense.
I don't think he was rehabilitated at any point in time.
No. And in fact, when he gets out of jail, he dies basically a year and a half later. That night is known in San Francisco history as the White Night Riot, in which 2,000 protesters began throwing flaming garbage cans at the city hall. And the story that got picked up like with interviews from the people who were participating in the White Night riots, was that they were outraged that a man could get away with murder because he'd eaten too many Twinkies. Have you, Michael, ever heard of the Twinkie defense?
Yeah, it clocked to me, I don't know, 5 minutes ago, whenever you were starting to bring this up. And then I was like, oh, right, this was the Twinkie defense. I didn't realize that it was Harvey Milk. I mean, I guess I did, but that it was Harvey Milk's murder was the Twinkie defense.
Yeah.
I think I've even heard of the Twinkie defense actually as well. Yeah.
That's how absurd it is that you, as a, what do we call you here, Gen Z ambassador on this show, heard about the Twinkie defense, you know?
Yeah.
That's how absurd and universal that is.
So yes, the Twinkie defense. So essentially, the Twinkie defense is that if you eat too much sugar, like in Twinkie, it messes with your brain and you become like not temporarily insane or anything, but you have less control than you would have. So if you have any other conditions, this exacerbates it. Now, load of steaming horseshit, obviously.
Do you think there's the Twinkie defense directly led to that myth in the 80s of sugar being hyperactivity and all that?
There may be a connection there, but that myth is not as prevalent as I thought it was.
No, I was going to say though, is that not true? Because I thought that as a child. Me and my friends would eat sweets in the park and we'd be mental. But I think it's because we had this like the placebo effect, and we'd be like, oh yeah, I heard sugar makes, psychosomatic. I heard sugar makes you mental.
I mean, there is, you are going to have like that quick burst of energy, obviously, but like, and to me, and goes against the whole hyperactivity thing, is if I have too much sugar, I also have a crash like 25 minutes later. So it's like, it can be off. It's not like cocaine where it's just like you're just constantly going and going. Like it is that kind of, you have a burst of energy and then you kind of come back down.
What I'm confused about is this, I don't know if you can get onto this, but is this like what they said in court, or is this just like after? Yeah.
Well, let's get to that. So first, where did the term Twinkie defense come from? There is a newspaper satirist named Paul Krasner who wrote for a Berkeley-based newspaper who was covering the trial, and he came up with the joke that they were using Twinkies as the cause for whites' action and not what he personally believed, which was that Dan White was just a homophobe who wanted to murder another homophobe. Which I will still say, I'm not saying Dan White wasn't homophobic. I think he more just had personal beef with these people. He also probably didn't like gays. It didn't help. Let's just say. There was a lot stacked again. I mean, if we're gonna attribute
a mitigating
Twinkies,
factor. Yeah. There's.
So it is Krasner who is attributed to coining the term Twinkie defense. Why did he choose Twinkies as his thing? Because it's never mentioned in the court proceedings. The word Twinkie is never uttered. Coca-Cola is. Coca-Cola and junk food are mentioned, sugary junk food, but Twinkie is never named. No one knows, including Krasner, why he chose a Twinkie, but the best sort of anecdote is there was a vending machine in his office building and it had Twinkies in it, so he probably had gotten it, just put a quarter in, got a Twinkie. It was, there's two in a pack, so it's sitting half open on his desk. He goes, Twinkies.
I think it's the funniest. Yeah. It's like the silliest. It's the word Twinkie, and it's a little like you couldn't go ding dong.
You can't go ding dong. Too sexual.
Too spot on, on that particular one. But Twinkie is a little bit, yeah. I think it's the same reason that it was used in Ghostbusters, the same reason it was used in Die Hard. Like, it's just funny enough. It's not too much of a hat on a hat.
Correct.
It's like right where that middle ground for comedy.
Boom. The Twinkie, yes. And once he says the Twinkie defense, Carson picks it up. Every talk show is talking about it. Every stand-up, I'm sure Robin Williams was doing Twinkie defense jokes, or Bill Maher, or whatever, right? Because he started in the late 70s, I assume.
Well,
and he didn't
I
have...
was just saying, Robin Williams makes sense because San Francisco was like his home, but I don't know. Bill Maher was a funny one. Sorry,
Bill
that
Maher's
just
a
struck me as funny.
Politico. He's always been sort of into the news
it.
kind of guy. So
Gotcha.
yeah, remember, he doesn't come up with his own ideas. So yeah, that's it. It was just a funny joke, and then people picked up on it. But the interesting thing is, the joke starts to become an attempted defense. After, like, we see it started to pop up usually in like 1980, 1981, the first cases. Now, has anyone successfully defended themselves on the Twinkie defense, let's say minus Dan White?
Not that I know of.
There's I've not seen any documented examples. And if it's not the Twinkie defense that got Dan his whatever slap on the wrist, what is it? Dan White used to be a police officer and a firefighter, and that the majority of the jury were middle-class, white, suburban moms who all, in interviews since, describe Dan White using terms like handsome or striking.
I was going to say they love a firefighter. They love it.
They love it. And they argue that it was actually Dan White who went on the stand, which, by the way, if you're pleading not guilty, never go on the stand. What the hell are you doing? But if you want to plead guilty with diminished capacity, by all means. It was his emotional testimony, combined with the fact that he had had so many years of service. The week after the murders, he was supposed to receive a medal for saving a life in a fire like 2 years beforehand, right? The defense even said, good people don't do this. There must be some other reason. And finally, the real reason that the jury said they could not go for murder in the first was that there was not clear evidence of premeditation in the state's case, which the prosecution has said, yeah, we didn't do a good enough job. Like, we thought saying he climbed in through the basement so he could get around the metal detectors was enough, but they did not establish that there was any murderous intent. Like, he never said, I'm going to kill you or you'll rue the day, or, there wasn't anything other than so basically they are arguing he climbed into the basement to avoid, like, I guess, being detained by security, not because of the gun, but because he had resigned, and that maybe he's just going to go talk to the mayor, and then he happens to see Harvey Milk in the hallway, and the Twinkies got him, so he decided to murder that guy too. So it's funny to note that when you look at the newspaper and the television news reporting, all of that gets mentioned, like, quite widely in 1978, 1979, even 1980, 81. It's all the jury said years of service, that the emotional testimony, no premeditation. But slowly we see the word Twinkie, like, work its way up, so that by the end of the 80s, all anyone says about this is Twinkies. So what's going on? What's happening in the United States that people really latched onto this case? Like, it's high profile. We're killing, some guy kills any politician, it's high profile, but the first openly gay one, yikes, right? It's a real crazy time. But let's frame the assassination of Harvey Milk in context. So, Michael, it's in the middle of 1978, right? Other things that happened in 1978. The week before, like actually 5 days before the Milk assassination, is the Jonestown Massacre.
Oh shit, Kool-Aid and Twinkies at the same damn time?
At the same time.
Oh my God.
Now, for those of you who don't know, the Jonestown Massacre is where 918 people died by suicide, air quotes, under the orders of their cult leader, Jim Jones, in a compound that he had purchased in Guyana. Drinking the Kool-Aid is the phrase that came off of this because, and it was not Kool-Aid, it was the knockoff Kool-Aid is what they used.
Store brand?
Yeah, store brand. You take the powdered, so for you, Naomi, squash. You would take squash, basically, and you would mix that with the poison, and then everyone would drink from that cup. So they're all, listening to the cult leader, including they would feed it to their children. There are a number of children who die in the Jonestown Massacre, and one congressman, Leo Ryan, was killed by the cult. That's happening this same week.
God, this is a really bad marketing thing for all this junk food. All in the same week. That's mad.
Yeah, so Kool-Aid and Twinkies, that's the 1-2 punch. By the way, also, again, every child's lunchbox when we were kids in the 90s has got Kool-Aid and Twinkies in it. Mm-hmm. Within the same couple of months, in the summer of 1978, Ted Bundy was arrested. The son of Sam Berkowitz was convicted, and the first Unabomber attack occurred at Northwestern University. It's all within 2 months of each other in 1978. Summer of 1978 is also the debut of Garfield, which I only include...
And what?
Garfield. Do you not know what Garfield is?
No, I know about Garfield, but why are we talking about Garfield?
I only include because in January of 1979, a woman shot 2 faculty dead at a San Diego public school, and when asked why she did it, she said, quote, "I don't like Mondays," end quote.
Those Monday people will get you every time.
And Andrew,
go ahead, Naomi.
Andrew managed to find a way to make Garfield depressing, so thanks for that.
He hates Mondays, and so did she.
I think Garfield does that to himself. But anyway, continue. I'm listening.
March 1979, Michael, is the 3 Mile Isle incident in which a nuclear reactor on 3 Mile Isle in the United States almost melted down. It partially melted down, being the 3rd largest nuclear disaster in world history after Chernobyl and the Fukushima Daiichi plant in 2011. It's a fucking sad time to be in the United States. 2 months after Dan White's verdict was announced, President Jimmy Carter gives what is known in history as the Malaise speech, in which he literally tells Americans who cannot afford heating to put a sweater on. And he says that this is a rough time for the U.S. and we're going to have to go through some tough decisions to make it to the other side, aka the moment he lost the 1980 presidential election. So, Dan White is effectively not exonerated necessarily, but he's a slap on the wrist at what is the exact nadir of the so-called American century, right? This is the United States that has had a seemingly endless war for more than a decade in Vietnam, race riots across large parts of the country, a president who committed crimes and was impeached for the first time since 1866 under the Watergate scandal, and a global pandemic in the form of the Hong Kong flu. Everyone, by 1979, is basically saying, everything sucks and nothing is ever going to get better. And then some homophobe gets off because he ate too many Twinkies.
I don't know what to say.
That's the correct reaction.
It sounds like what you've essentially intoned here is that the beginning of the end of the American dream started in around 1978-ish. Mm-hmm. Okay, and Garfield was somehow involved.
And Garfield, yes. It turns out Garfield was not the hero we needed. He is the imposter king that sits on a throne for 1,000 years, and his throne is, I guess, the back window of a Volvo, something like that.
But what would Odie think? That's really what it comes down to.
No, Odie represents our silence in the face of oppression. So the Twinkie defense's popularity, I would argue, is all part of this insane period where it genuinely feels like nothing can go right. All of the systems are broken. And here we have someone whose institutional corruption and violence is rewarded. And the personal responsibility, which is the talking point that gets attached to the Twinkie defense, disappears. That we're not holding people responsible for their actions. We're saying that a Twinkie is enough to justify murder. Just as later we would say, spilling coffee in your lap, why should you sue McDonald's for that? It's your personal responsibility not to spill coffee in your lap.
Do you know what I find interesting, though, is like nowhere in the trial did they actually mention Twinkies.
Yeah.
So it's like this whole uproar and I guess like the catchy slogan that the journalists have given it, but it's actually was never mentioned in court.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's
when the myth becomes bigger than the truth.
Yeah,
you print
exactly.
The myth. Yeah.
The myth is bigger than the truth, which brings us back to the villainization of the Twinkie as the epitome of the U.S. diet, right? Of the glutton. I would argue that this is the moment the Twinkie becomes the villain, right? It gets associated with this Twinkie defense thing. People just have this image in their mind that the Twinkie is almost, and it's like the fact that it is this sort of, you know, like you said, it's just sort of a shape. It's not really a shape kind of a thing. Like it's just sort of a bland golden thing full of, again, white cream. It just sort of, it's easy as a blank slate. Much like having a cipher as your main character in a novel helps the audience to associate, or in a movie, associate more with them as seeing themselves as the main character. The Twinkie being so blank, so fake, no one can quite contextualize what is. We had trouble describing, I think, the Twinkie on the front end, right?
Yeah. And yeah, it's that weird combination of like the origin story, like the name is just funny. Like it's got a certain silliness to it.
Yeah.
And then you look at it and it's got a certain silliness to the shape. And then you go back and find out, well, it used to taste like bananas. It was named after a shoe store. Like the absurdity all around it seems to have like carried that aura throughout the generations, throughout the decades to become like this like punching bag, I guess, at a certain point in time.
And I say that this kicks off things that we are still dealing with today. Not only does 1978 and 1979 so eerily look like 2025 in the hopelessness of the masses, but there's also a phenomenon happening at the same time. The hippies of the 1960s transform in the 1970s into what we often call the me generation, people who put their own personal interests above that of society. These are the people who will vote for Reagan in 1980, right? These are the people who want this me first adoption. So we also see that merge into the food industry. We have books like Food Pollution, the Violation of Our Inner Ecology, or Consumer Beware, Your Food and What's Been Done to It. 1975, the first Food Day takes place on Columbia University. It's a bit of a take on Earth Day. It's where Dr. Joan Dye Gusau argues to a crowd at Madison Square Garden that most of the food available was just food products. It's not food, it's food products. And that inspires, in 1982, the premiere of a new term. And Esquire magazine writer Lawrence Shames coins the term ultra-processed foods and names the Twinkie as the epitome of the ultra-processed foods. So I would say that this association between the Twinkie and this panic that exists in certain people who may or may not be the Secretary of Health and Human Services at the United States, that foods which have been processed, foods which are not whole in their nature, is actually just that Twinkie Defense Personal Responsibility Cloud transferring over into whatever panic people can make money off of. Because boy, I'll tell you, the ultra processed food haters make bank, right? We gonna just eat meat. We just gonna have like raw vegetables and or lightly steamed vegetables. We don't put spice on any of our food, which I didn't realize that, by the way, that's part of the ultra processed. They don't spice their food. They season it, but like cinnamon, for example, or cumin is considered processed food.
Okay.
Gross, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just going to eat T-bone steaks, lightly salted, every day. Ugh.
And now for something completely unrelated. Do you think this is where the like origin of the almond mum comes in?
What's that mean? You tell me what the almond
Do you not
mum
know
is.
what almond mums are? Okay, so almond mums is like a term coined by Gen Z people about their mums who like, you know, when you're like, I'm hungry, mum, do you have any snacks in the house? They never have any snacks because they all grew up in this like diet culture and it's like health culture. So they're like, just have some almonds. Like you'll be fine. Some unsalted almonds. And my mum is an almond mum. And this also goes in hand in hand with ingredients only households where there's just like, in my fridge, like in my cupboard growing up, it was like some flour, some dried pasta. And like, my friends would be like, what can we eat? Some unsalted nuts. I'll be like, I don't know. You can try and concoct something.
See, Naomi, Andrew and I were quite the opposite growing up.
Oh my God.
And I have a feeling, Andrew, can I coin this phrase now? We had a Twinkie mom.
For sure. Yo, I don't think I drank a glass of water at home until I was 20. Like, not even 18. I'm pretty sure I was still mainlining Pepsi when I was at uni. Like,
do you know, it doesn't work out well either way because I used to, I remember there was a point where there was a deal on Ben & Jerry's and Pringles at the shop. I never experienced gaining weight because there was no snacks in my house. And I was fully making myself bowls of icing at home to eat as a snack because I had nothing to eat as snacks. And I didn't know that you could gain weight from snacks. I ate a whole tub of Ben & Jerry's and a whole tube of Pringles every day after school. And then I cried because I was like, why am I getting fat? And then I learned about what unhealthy food was. But yeah, almond mum, that's the term.
Poor education. Meanwhile, Michael again and I just Mountain Dew, Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, Doritos every day after school. Also, I would eat after school. Don't ask me why. A breakfast Hot Pocket that was a croissant pocket that would have cheese, scrambled eggs, and sausage in it. Wow. You were living my childhood dream. I was like rummaging through the like dried ingredients trying to scrape together a snack. I used to sometimes fry apples with sugar on. That
sounds
nice.
Delicious.
Yeah,
that sounds really nice. That's like half an apple pie right there.
I'd go around my friend's house and they would have like the most amazing snacks and I would just sit there and like gobble them all like a little fiend. But
my best friend was one of your houses and that's why he spent all his time in my house.
Yeah.
Yeah. We fed the neighborhood of all the almond mom children.
So, the Twinkie becomes the ultimate symbol of cheap, delicious, low nutrition foodstuffs because it's also the symbol of the U.S.'s decay, right? It's the medical association is actually the societal association, which I would argue is the same thing that's going on with ultra-processed foods today. It's
like seed oils now.
Yeah.
Like seed oils is the Twinkie of the 2025.
Exactly.
You know,
and it's people who aren't, it's not that they even care about the food and its impact. It's the distrust that they have inherently in the production of the oil, right? That is the legacy of the Twinkie. The Twinkie's rise to infamy has so little to do, again, much with its rise to fame, the deliciosity or the health itself of the Twinkie. No, it rose to fame on its brand associations and it became infamous because Harvey Milk was assassinated by Dan White, and someone thought, ooh, Twinkies. We should associate these together. So that's my seemingly unrelated Twinkies and sadness. I'm not sure what the general vibe is actually on that one.
I mean, like it's Carter, right? It's the malaise speech. It's basically what we were all three of us born into over the last 40 plus years. The end of whatever this noble experiment of Western society / capitalism is, I guess.
The neoliberal, austerity, individualist society that we live in comes from the humble Twinkie and its misappropriation to the assassination of Harvey Milk.
Poor Twinkie, getting a lot of hate, man.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Just like Kool-Aid. So, Michael, tell us, what did you learn today? What are a couple of things you didn't know before you walked in today that now you are filled with knowledge on?
I think, number one, Twinkie banana. Didn't know that. Twinkies were built to shape into old school lunchboxes. That's interesting. The biggest thing, though, is the fact that a guy in like 1947 was saying, yeah, processed food is bad for you. And it's just like when you learn that, you know, Exxon was, or whatever the predecessor of Exxon was writing papers back in the 1940s about CO2 emissions and global warming. It's like, we've known this stuff forever. And it just seems like, I mean, maybe this is directly tied into the malaise. There's just nothing we can do about it. Like we've known about it. And you would hope that the information is enough of a key, but yeah, ultra processed foods ultimately, you know, lead to a certain malaise, both culturally and spiritually.
Yeah.
But I also think it's like that whole thing of like telling kids, oh, smoking will kill you. But like, they're all smoking cigarettes already and they're not dead. So it's like, as much as you can tell someone like, oh, if you eat too many Twinkies, you might die and you're going to be really unhealthy. It's like, but I'm eating the Twinkies and I'm kind of fine. So it's like, it's hard because it's like a very far away prospect. And we want like the immediate gratification of eating a delicious cake.
Yeah. And, you know, picking up with what Michael said, it could be that, and maybe this is the actual sort of lesson to note, but the malaise that Carter is engaging with are the problems that are so big: global warming, oil crisis, you know, globalization and the loss of jobs in the neoliberal order. And, you know, he negotiated like one of the first temporary peace settlements in Palestine. You know, all of these huge problems that are exacerbated, or if not directly caused, by these societal ills, you can't do anything about them. So you turn inward, right? You go after what you can control, yourself. And so that obsession over the Twinkie as the enemy, right? I'm actually fairly certain, isn't that in Dodgeball, the thing that like Ben Stiller electrocutes himself if he reaches for the Twinkie when he's doing his workouts? Yeah. Like that mentality comes from, I can't control how the world has gone out of control, but I can control eating Twinkies. Just as RFK Jr., while he actually does have a measure of control, people like him who hate ultra processed foods, they can't control COVID, they can't control climate change, they can't control a war in insert place here. I don't know.
Their child having autism.
Their child's autism. But they can eat roadkill, which is not ultra processed. It is whole foods. So that's totally an option for them to put it on.
So Twinkie as a metaphor for the human condition.
That's why we love the Twinkie. It is us. We are it.
I mean, I'm back on, even though it doesn't taste the same, I'm back in the Twinkie's good graces.
Yeah. So, Andrew, is there anything you learnt about or you want the audience to know about the research process you had making this episode?
That's a good question, Naomi. So, trying to find out the origin of a myth is a really interesting one. And one of the things I did here, how I really tracked down Paul Krasner, was it had been mentioned in sort of the news articles and the readings that all the late night comedians were talking about the Twinkie defense, that's how the term became popular. And so what I actually ended up doing was looking into the sort of process of late night comedy, like how do monologue jokes get written? And it turns out that at least in the 70s, now today you just look at Twitter and you steal the best Twitter jokes and try to make them legally distinct, or you just have celebrities read the tweets and then pretend like you have created anything. But back in the 70s, it was subscribing to regional papers and reading political cartoons and reading, like, you know, the weird stories. This is how Jay Leno's whole career was built on what did the local newspaper have to say, and was it misprinted in a hilarious way. And that process led me to finding out that there was this political cartoon made by Paul Krasner. And then I was able to confirm using his name as my term to look for. Indeed, there were sources saying this originated with him. So it's interesting to find the primary source first and then go confirm through secondary sources that indeed this is the origin of it, which was a fun way to do things around. But I think this is the first time that I went looking in the secondary literature and that accidentally found the primary and then had to go verify it somewhere else. Was a bit of a backwards way of doing it, but it worked out either way. So that's us wrapping it up, Michael. Thank you very much for guesting on this snacktacular episode. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Where can people find you on the internet?
Me personally, no, that's going to be difficult. But if anybody wants to support my fledgling brewing company here in Scotland, Walkie Talky Brewing Company, you can follow us on social media at Walkie Talky Brew. That's talkie with a Y, not an IE, because of SEO. Oh, it's spelled.
It's on your hat, Michael. Move that hat towards the camera. WALKIETALKY, Walkie Talky.
Yeah, give us a follow. Sometimes I put stuff on there. I don't know.
Yeah. And if nothing else, you can look at really great artwork that goes onto beer cans.
They are very nice beers as well, because I had them at Frank's birthday.
Thank you,
very
Naomi.
delicious.
Thank you.
She does not benefit from saying that in any way, shape, or form.
I just
she
like
never has to
beer.
technically see Michael again.
I just like beer.
Yeah, I just like
I
beer.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can find us, of course, by subscribing to the show. We're on Apple. We're on Spotify. We're on Pocket Cast. We're on what my metrics tell me is, quote, another podcast app that they don't get the data for, but a lot of people are listening on other. But really, you just search for the show anywhere you get podcasts, including YouTube or Patreon. Seemingly Unrelated Podcast. It's us. You'll find it. Please do subscribe. Please do like. And we will be back in just 2 more weeks to talk about something else that is an everyday thing that is somehow connected to a not so everyday thing. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye. Stay away from turkey twizzlers.
Seemingly Unrelated is a Life's Little Murder Boards production. Created and hosted by Andrew Johnstone, audio production and editing services provided by Naomi Cohn. Our artwork is by Megan Zemet. The theme song is Irizumi by Pistol Jazz. To find out more about everyone involved and access the show notes for this episode, visit us at seeminglyunrelatedpod.com.
Listen, first Josh Brolin kills Harvey Milk, then he snaps away half the universe. And I think that's really where the menace comes in at this point in time.
Someone must stop this man. What he did with those Goonies must be prosecuted.
Actually, that might be his inciting incident when he got his hands tied up on the side of that convertible and he was like on the little bike and he was
so pushed over the edge.
That's
How's all this going
trauma.
for you, Naomi?
The Goonies defense is
Do
what
you
we're
see
trying
the
to
like
offer up
blank
right now.
stare off screen I was doing? I was thinking, I was like, how am I meant to know what to keep in or cut if I don't know what any of the references are?
I assure you, you could cut the Goonies defense. If nothing else, you could make it an interstitial or a stinger if you want.